Yeah, so we're doing this little kind of Q&A with Dean Hagan. She's retiring this semester, and hopefully this will serve as kind of like something that'll help you get to know Dean Hagan a little bit and some of her advice and things like that, and kind of highlight her career as a scientist and a physicist in a sense. So we're really going to miss her next year, so hopefully this will be a good kind of goodbye-ish type thing. Anyway, let's get going into the questions, I suppose. So the first question is, tell us something about yourself that would surprise most people.
So I will say that my path to a PhD in physics and a career as a scientist was not a straight line. I always loved mathematics, and I liked some science when I was young, but in high school I took physics when I was a junior, and I absolutely hated it. And I think it was because my teacher, who was very well intended, it was all about his process, and my notebook had to be such and such, and it wasn't about learning. And so I was turned off by that. And as a result, when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a math major. And I started out and enjoyed math, but then I kind of got a little disenfranchised. My academic advisor happened to be the chair of the physics department. His name was Dr. O'Brien. And when I met with him and I expressed that sort of uncertainty about continuing as a math major, he suggested that I take physics. And I said, physics? I hate physics. And after some coercion, I decided that I would take his advice. And then, of course, I fell in love with physics, and I loved my teachers, and I loved the philosophical implications of some of the physics principles that I was learning. And then I liked my math again, too, because I could see it as a tool for what I wanted to do in physics. And so I think that as a result of that, I would suggest to students who might be listening to this out here, don't be afraid to explore different fields. When you're in college, it's the best time to be able to take classes in different disciplines and see whether you might go down a different path. So I don't know if that's a surprise to you, Noah, but.
Well, yeah, I would say so.
Good.
Yeah. And that kind of, I guess, segues well into the second question, which would, I think, almost maybe it's the same answer, but if you could return to your first year of college, what would you tell yourself?
So in addition to what I just said about being open to studying and exploring all kinds of things that might be of interest to you, I would say to myself to be more disciplined about my time management. I was not a very skilled person when it came to time management. I was a procrastinator, and I still am to some extent, but I set deadlines for myself that precludes me from being too much of a procrastinator, because I think it's so much easier in the end if you keep up with your work as you go, and you're able to learn more that way. And so think about time management is what I would say to myself. And I had really good friends who were good time managers, and so I learned from them, but it took me a little bit of time to do so.
Yep, that was definitely something I struggled with for a while. I can't say I've gotten any better, but you know.
I'm not perfect at it,
Yeah.
and it seems to be the things that I'm really not excited about doing that I tend to procrastinate more. You know, if I really am turned on by something, then you know I want to delve right in. But those have tos,
Yeah.
they're in a different category, right?
For sure. Um, so what's the biggest misconception people have about physicists?
Oh, that's a great question, and it makes me think of a cartoon that you know that of a story of a study that was done with young children, asking them to draw what is a picture of a scientist in general, and they would draw a picture of a man with glasses, wearing a lab coat, and having some kind of device in the pocket, and so I think that a lot of people feel that same way about physicists in particular still. It is a male dominated discipline. And so a lot of times people don't think about women as being physicists. This is in the general public. Physicists know that there are all kinds of diverse people who have jobs in various physics disciplines. I think the other thing that people think about physicists is that we're just like nerds. We are nerds, but we also have other interests. A lot of times physicists are musicians or athletes, and they often have very rich personal lives. Many people are married and many people have children, and so we're just like regular people, and I'm not sure that the vast majority of the population knows that about us. So we got to spread the word, Noah.
It's true. That's true. We should have worn our lab coats then to this interview then, right? Really, really reinforce that stereotype there. Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah. The Coke bottle glasses and stuff. So what was the best advice you were ever given?
You know, that's hard. I have been given really good advice throughout my career. I'll tell you two stories. So the first story is when I was in graduate school. So what I haven't shared is that I went to a small liberal arts college for my undergraduate degree in physics. It was an all women's college, and I had been to most of my life, I had been to schools that were women only or girls only, certainly as I was an adolescent. But when I went to graduate school, I was the only woman in the program. And most of the men in the program were international students, many of them from Asia, from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. And their culture was such that they were not very accepting of me. So I was pretty miserable because by then I was a very social person. I was shy when I was young. But my friends who I had gone to undergrad with, they had jobs, they were buying nice clothes, they were going on vacation, and I was living in a student ghetto and pretty miserable. So I went into my department head's office and told him I was quitting. And Dr. Carvellano said to me, "You may not quit." He wouldn't let me quit. He said, "You take a leave of absence, and a year from now, if you still feel the same way, then you can quit." And of course, he was right on. I got a job doing some Fortran programming and just a sort of a research assistant position. And I loved what I was doing, but I wanted to be the researcher, not the research assistant. And so I went back to graduate school with a vengeance, and it didn't matter to me that that my fellow students were not as accepting of me as I would have liked. And then, of course, there were people that I met along the way in the physics program who were good allies, and I made some friends, and that helped me too. So that was the first piece. Then the second piece of advice, I was really upset one time, and when I was an early career scientist, I didn't feel like I was being treated appropriately. And my mentor said to me, Maura, take the long view. Don't ride those waves, you know, of don't allow people to upset you. You know, just keep your eye on the prize. And that was another piece of really good advice. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, that's really good advice, I think, for everybody. So, yeah, that's great.
A moment for me at that time. You know, I was just like so worked up about what really in the long term was not going to be a make or break thing.
Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of students up here, at least me especially. So it's good advice for me, at least. Yeah.
Try to step back and take the big picture in.
Yeah. So I guess kind of a shift of tone in the questions a little bit. What's your favorite Aggie tradition?
Well, you know, there are many, but I guess my favorite is at commencement. I love, and I feel so robbed that the graduates of the class of 2020 didn't have this experience, but I love how we line up on the quad, and then we follow the bagpipers. I love them. As we parade through campus over to the Spectrum, and all of the families and friends are lined up on the side of the walkway cheering, and then we go into the Spectrum, and the deans sit with the students in their colleges. I love that. And when we're called upon as a college, all of us stand up and make a lot of noise. And then just before we conclude, we all sing Where the Sagebrush Grows, and we do all the hand signals and so forth, and or the hand choreography, I should say. And I just love that. It's just so joyful, and I will remember those moments always. So I hope you'll get to do that, Noah.
Yeah. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping. I'm graduating this year, so.
We need that vaccine in time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or just things could get a little bit more under control than they are right now, right? So.
For sure, yeah.
Which isn't much hard. Shouldn't be too hard getting it better than where we're at, but anyway.
Right?
Yeah.
Protect one another.
Mm-hmm. So kind of another Aggie related thing, I suppose. If you were to create a College of Science flavor of Aggie ice cream, what would you call it and what would you have in it?
Yeah, this is a hard one for me. I should have given this more thought. Well, for sure, it would have to have chocolate in it. Chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips, Aggie chocolate chips, I guess is what you could say, right? And I'm not sure what else. Maybe coffee flavored ice cream. And what would I call it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to work on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do love lots of the Aggie flavors that already exist. So
Yeah, that's definitely one of those questions where you kind of get put on the heat or on the spot. So,
I should have rehearsed my answer to that question. I don't have a better answer for you at this point. Sorry.
that's all right. Yeah, because it always needs to be like that perfect in between of like the clever and the funny kind of thing. Yeah.
And I'm not feeling either clever or funny at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I would take it to the College of Science leadership team, and we'd have a strategic planning session on what we should call the ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Be really systematic about it.
But I'm more of a team builder. I don't want to make it myself.
I see. I see. Yeah. It's all part of your process, really.
That's right. It's all part of my process. You get it.
Okay. Um, so for the last question, and I think this one is particularly good for the times that we're in, just with have a lot of people having to move online and juggle a lot of things with school and family and things. Um, so when your motivation is faltering, what's the pep talk you give yourself?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the context. This is a really tough time for students, for faculty, for staff, and for the leadership at the university, trying to keep everybody as safe as possible and trying to advance our very important mission of education and research and outreach, our three-way missions. Um, so when I get discouraged, I try not to become overwhelmed by all that remains to be done, by all of the things that I can't do, and I try to um, think about um, step to where the objective or the goal that I'm trying to achieve, and then just work on those steps, one thing at a time, and trying to tell myself, thank myself for my hard work and for doing what I can do, thanking my colleagues for their hard work and for what it is that they can do, thanking the students for going that extra mile, for doing what's so hard. And I guess the message is gratitude and appreciation um, for what we do have at Utah State, and for making the best of a bad situation. And you know, we are doing amazing things in these very difficult times. And so I think taking time to appreciate just what I can do and what those around me are doing for me, and for our shared vision is how I try to keep myself from getting too down, too overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, actually. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great advice with all that's going on right now. Yeah. And I mean, that's all the questions I have. So, and I think, again, I think I speak for everybody in the college when I say thank you for all you've done for the school and your service as a physicist and your career and anything under that whole spectrum there. So, yeah, I thank you again for joining us and all you've done for Utah State.
Well, if I may respond,
Yeah.
uh, I really appreciate those kind words, Noah. And it's really been a joy and a privilege to have had the opportunity to serve as Dean of the College of Science at Utah State University for 5.5 years before I retired. When I came to this university, I had hopes that it would be hard but fun, and that we would together as a team of leaders, students, faculty, staff, bring the College of Science to a new level. And I feel proud that we've done that. I think there's lots of things to celebrate, and I'm really, really glad that I came here and had the opportunity to meet people like you, and to make the college what it is today. And I have a really hopeful outlook for what Interim Dean Baker is going to be able to do, as well as the next permanent dean once the search is complete. So I'm going to be watching from afar. And thanks so much for the opportunity to do this with you today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I should thank Spencer Perry and Catriel Hatfield. They actually organized it, so credit where it's due. I didn't necessarily put it together, but
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think that's it then.
Okay. Be well. Take care.